Hey gang, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of Intuitive Angling, and thanks for tuning in on this 4th of July. Hope you guys are having a good one, and got a good story for you guys today pertinent to 4th of July. I'm going to tell you about the trip I had down at Grand Lake in Oklahoma on the 4th of July, where I caught 32 bass on 32 casts in a row. So I think you guys might find it interesting, and you know, a lot of you guys like to hear some of the old time stories, so we got one for you today guys. So here we go. Okay, here was the deal on this. You guys have been with me for a long time, watch the channel. You know that my mom and dad, they had a trailer house down at Grand Lake for over 30 years down there. You know, I grew up in Joplin, Missouri, which is about 35 miles from the closest part of Grand Lake. So every weekend from about the mid-70s to into the 90s, early 2000s, you know, I'd be down at Grand Lake every weekend, man. I spent thousands of days over there over the course of 30 years. We usually pack up, you know, every Friday or something like that when I got off work from working part-time jobs to go down there and stay for the weekend and fish and everything. And this happened in on July 4th in July 4th, 1979. Excuse me. And we were down there for 4th of July weekend, and I had just got my first boat. It was, you guys have heard me talk about it. I bought it for $200, 16-foot leaking flat bottom at a rummage sale. So I painted it up. I painted it camouflage like Doug Hannon's boat. I got me a little cheap trolling motor, and I had one Lowrance flasher on the front of the boat. Didn't have one on the back. And I found a 1967 9-horse motor, and that was my boat. And man, I was proud of it. I bought some AstroTurf carpeting and put carpet in it, and made some raised casting decks. And it was, even though it was a junky little boat, it was all mine, and I'd paid for it, mowing grass and everything. So anyway, I towed it down there that weekend. It was 4th of July weekend, and I went out that morning fishing. It was about 9 o'clock in the morning. And my mom and dad's trailer house was pretty close to the Sailboat Bridge area of Grand Lake. A lot of you guys that fish Grand know where that's at. And anyway, of course, in 1979, I didn't know much about fishing. I was sort of just getting started on lake fishing. I'd just been fishing ponds and wading creeks and stuff. So I ran across the lake from our trailer house down there, and there was this one rocky point that just came out into the lake. And basic bass fishing 101. And I remember I had a Rebel Crawdad WeAre, and you guys have heard me talk about crawdad patterns. Crankbaits don't work in the summer, but Grand Lake used to be so good that anything worked there before it got destroyed from the Wolf Creek facility and all the tournament pressure that's killed the lake down there. So I had this Crawdad WeAre on. I remember I had 10-pound test Maxima line. I had a 5.5-foot Shimano rod and a Shimano Bantam 100 bait cast reel, which was, I was so proud of that. That was like, you know, everybody wanted a Bantam 100 back there. So anyway, I went over to this point, and I got out on the end of the point, and I didn't know, we didn't have this was before contour map, so I didn't have any idea how this point laid out. It was just a rocky point along the main channel there. So I got up to the point, and I cast it out to the left of the point. First cast, I caught one. And so I'm casting out to the left of this point. I didn't know it at the time, but I was casting out. The boat was in like 8 foot of water. And when I cast it out to the left, I was casting out into the old river channel. So I was actually casting into about 40 foot of water, bringing it up the side of this steep, almost a vertical bank point up. I didn't know what I was fishing. At the time, this is the first time I'd fished this point. Threw out there again, another one. Threw out there again, another one. Threw out there and again, another one. And it wound up, guys, I made 32 casts in a row and caught 32 bass. There must have been a giant school of bass on this point. Now, the WeAre, if you guys know about it, it only runs, man, probably 5 foot deep or so on 10-pound line. So I remember I'd cast it out there in that open water and I'd reel it, and then finally I'd feel it hit something, and it was hitting that rocky bluff ledge coming up the point there. And there must have been a giant school of bass on this point. I mean, this is, like I said, 1979, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, most of them were anywhere between, you know, 1.5 pounds to maybe 3.5 pounds. I couldn't believe it. It was the most bass I've ever caught in my life. I just was so excited I couldn't stand it. So after about, I'd stayed there for a couple hours, but and then the fish, they sort of quit biting a little bit. And I ran back to get Dad at the back at the trailer house, and a friend of his that was staying with us to take him over there. So they went back over there, and we caught one or two after that. But I guess I'd caught most of the school out of there. But it was one of those most memorable trips I've ever had, and it just goes to show you how many bass used to be in lakes like Grand Lake before they got overfished and overused, that type of stuff. There's no telling how many bass you could have caught back then with the stuff that we have today, but it was that good. But anyway, guys, that was a remarkable day. I just happened to hit it at the right time, at the right place, and made the right cast. I cast it all around the point everywhere else and couldn't catch any. There must just have been a giant, tight, wadded school of fish on there. And to this day, even as many hundreds and thousands of days I've spent on Grand Lake, I have never got into a school of fish that big. Even fishing offshore later in the years, that was the biggest school of fish I've ever got into any lake. I've never caught them on any lake 32 casts in a row. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the story. We'll talk later.